Welcome in, everybody, to Red Rank Podcast. I'm your host, The Crow Show. Today I'm being joined by somebody who I've recently been enjoying their content recently and just wanted to get them on the show. So, Lillipie is here. Thank you for joining us. Partner Twitch streamer, Fog Whisperer, and her pronouns are she, her. Lily, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today, and how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, I'm living my best life. I have a podcast based on Dead by Daylight. What could go wrong? But my gosh, this weekend was exhausting. I don't know if you caught all of the back and forth
Ooh,
of people
I
talking
did.
about
I
like
did.
it was
Yeah.
to
It's pretty
summer
tiring to look at.
it.
Oh my God. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I was I was gonna save this for later, but let's get into it while we're on the topic. So there was a tournament this weekend, Dead by Daylight
Mm.
tournament, where two of the hosts used words that are problematic in the community. They said the word blendette, and they also said Oreo instead of saying Onryo. Now,
Mm.
these are terms that should just be like not in our vocabulary for Dead by Daylight. And I think it was a good learning experience for those two hosts. I think they handled it very graciously.
Yeah.
But my gosh, did it ever like it just brought out I think the worst in some people who were just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, fight me, I'm gonna say Oreo for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that was some very weird energy. It's one thing to be like, "Oh, you know what? I didn't recognize it, and now that, people have called it out, I should probably think about how this may harm people in the future." But
Yeah,
instead of that, people very much so were on the bandwagon. Well, I'm still going to use it. And I just don't care. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of like taking the mask off and being like, "Oh, well, this is who I am, and if you don't like it, don't watch my content." You're making your space very unacceptable for people that want to find comfort and support, especially as marginalized creators and
hmm,
viewers, those kinds of things. You're making that space feel unwelcome, and that's pretty
oh yeah,
damaging to the community, especially considering how diverse the DBD team itself is, how
yeah,
diverse DBD's lore is in terms of like nationalities and backgrounds, sexualities and whatnot,
yeah,
those kinds of things, as well as the content creators and the community that play it. DBD has a massive fan base, so to just have a platform and to, instead of boosting and elevating those voices that need it,
hmm,
demolish it and say, well, my opinion and my viewpoint trumps all. I
yeah,
don't think that's very appropriate at all.
yeah, I agree with you. And like let's just let's just say it like it is. It's not really for white people to say what's racist and what's not, because
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine. I hope he doesn't mind me dropping his name. Yowzel posted a really meaningful
Mm-hmm.
thread about how harmful and hurtful it is when people deliberately mispronounce Asian names. So
Mm.
maybe their intention is not racist, but for somebody of Asian background, for them to have people constantly mock and ridicule
Yeah.
names and words in their language, like, yeah, that's not okay for the community. And
Mm.
I had that stance as well, like the Oreo Onryo thing. Like, I just didn't like the word Oreo. I thought it sounded
Mm.
silly. So, but I wasn't aware of how harmful it is for people to deliberately mispronounce names. And so I sent my
Mm.
friend Yowzel a message saying, hey, I appreciate you shedding light on this. I wasn't aware of that. So
Mm.
I'm going to take that information. I'm going to educate myself and my community. And
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a post on my Discord just saying, hey, people, like, this happened this weekend. You know, it shouldn't, it should go without saying, but blendette, we just cannot use that word. It's not okay. It's
Yeah.
hurtful. It's problematic. In addition to that, saying Oreo or Sudoku is not
Yeah.
okay too, because it's mocking people's culture, and that's not okay. And
Mm. I also feel like it does reflect a very real world issue. I think, as POC, while my name specifically, has more of like a sentimental meaning because I was named after the, aunts on both sides of my family, for example.
mhm,
Um, And a lot of other, foreign cultures, names are very sacred. And I know in Japanese culture, for example, a lot of names are, based off of like nature, like familial traditions and stuff like that. And so a lot of the times, even the characters behind them, create those words for the name, but they actually do have meanings. And Sadako does actually have a meaning,
Hmm.
right? And,
Yeah.
this is from somebody I've just like casually studied Japanese on and off just because I was interested in like the
Okay.
language and culture and whatnot. And I wanted people to know, yes, that does have an actual meaning and it does tie into like the lore of the series that she's from. I know she may be a fictional character, but there are also pretty much, people that are named Sadako in real life, as well as other names. And even Anryo, the word,
Hmm.
for the type of ghost that she is, also has a meaning. Again, like these are all symbols and very much real things, and those
Yeah.
are sacred. It's different because those names are ethnic and have culture and background to them. But you notice in like the real world, there are people that immigrate from countries and they may come to places like America, like the UK, but they change their names to be more English sounding because people don't know how to pronounce their names or people don't care to learn how to pronounce their names. Growing up in high school, there was a girl that I went to school with. Her name was Makachuku, but people just called her Maki. And she would say, "No, it's okay, just call me Maki," because a lot of
Oh.
people didn't know how to pronounce her name. Or I've
Hmm.
seen people have their cultural names and traditions stripped away from them and they're just called Michael or John or
Yeah.
Angie or Robin, those kinds of things. These are the effects of assimilation in real life. And so
Hmm.
just because she's fictional does not mean that this does not have real world implications.
That's really beautifully said. I couldn't say it any better myself. Like in that,
Mm.
I go through a little bit of that too, because
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess I'll self dox myself, if you will, in some kind of way. My name is Adrian Charlie. That's my first and last name. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the last name Charlie has no significance to my family. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that Native people were given more English names,
Mm-hmm.
and in my particular region, they give us first names for last names. So you get people
Mm-hmm.
named with the last name Charlie, the last name Seymour, the last name John, and
Mm.
Dick, and all these different they don't mean anything to us. So
Yeah.
my traditional name is it's actually Telecutston. Now, good luck trying to get
Oh.
anybody to
Oh,
say that,
okay. Wow.
right?
See?
So yeah, so that's like my traditional name, and with that name,
Mm-hmm.
people from my culture will know where I'm from, which family
Mm-hmm.
I'm from,
Mm-hmm.
who are my ancestors. There's so
Wow.
much to a name, and like it's so meaningful. And my English name really doesn't mean a lot to me, and
Yeah.
I carry that every day, and it's like an inner struggle. So I can
Mm-hmm.
see how people who are feeling upset because somebody deliberately uses the wrong name for a character in a video game. Um, yeah,
Mm.
there's a lot of roots there, a lot of backgrounds, and if you come from a place of privilege, like if you're a white person who hasn't been the target of
Yeah.
like harassment like that, you're of course you're not going to understand, and of course you're not going
Yeah, for
to
sure.
see how these things can be hurtful. But I really was hoping that people would be more interested in hearing other people's perspectives. But I saw one guy in particular who has like a really big following and was kind of like, I'm still gonna say it, fight me, like cancel me. I'm like, that's just not it. Like
No.
that's not cool.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, especially when people like that have a platform, you
Yeah.
know? We want all people that are welcome because we all share the common denominator of loving video games, specifically Dead by Daylight. Why
Hmm.
would you want to push people that are part of that community away? Do you want nobody left to play with? Is that what you're hoping for? You want to push those people away?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we don't always know who's in our community, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not that we should use that as a way to be like, oh, I got to be careful because somebody out there might be this or that. But like,
Hmm.
you should just always be in a position where you're like, hey, let's do our best to make this a welcoming place to be, and
Hmm.
make everybody feel welcome. Because when you use these terms, you isolate other people, and it's
Absolutely.
not a good feeling. Um, so yeah, that was the tea. I guess we started with this talking
Yeah.
talking about those terms. I want to rewind the clock a little bit though, and ask you like,
Mhm.
when it comes to gaming, like what got you into gaming? Was there like a particular console game or system you that got you into it?
Growing up, actually, my dad played video games a lot, and so
Okay.
a lot of the time, I would just end up playing whatever he handed me. And my dad was like a single father growing up, and so a lot of
Okay.
the time, whenever he would get me ready first, and then he would like introduce me to media like video games or like anime, like
Oh,
legitimately, he
no
would
way.
he would have the VHS tapes for Sailor Moon, and he knew I
Oh,
would just like
wow.
sit down and watch Sailor Moon while he would go get ready for work, and then
Mhm.
he would start his day, drop me off at school, get himself to work, and then rinse and repeat as a single father. And so video games were a huge part for me growing up because it was a really great way to pass the time. And then I was so immersed in a lot of these worlds, I could not get over it. But
Mhm.
particularly one of the games that stood out to me was Tomb Raider, with like Lara Croft.
Oh, yeah.
That was like my
Yeah.
absolute favorite growing
No
up.
way.
And so I remember a lot of the time, anything that she would do in the game, I would like try to like reenact, so she's got like dual pistols and stuff.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
be sneaking around the corners of the house and be like, I got you, Dad, I got you.
Oh, no way.
Those kinds of things. And I
Yeah.
remember for Christmas, he actually ended up getting me like boots that look like her, so Tomb Raider boots. So I would just like go around jumping off of stuff in the house and be like,
No.
ha, ha, and like, mimic all the noises from like when she would like climb stuff or like fall off of stuff.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
that was my introduction into gaming. And like I started going from there, and then I started collecting games on my own in like my teenage years. And I
Mhm.
remember my dad used to get mad at me because I would have an allowance per week, and my allowance was like $100. And anytime that I could get a break from school, I would immediately go to GameStop, spend it all. Like
No
if it was
way.
like some sort of video game
Yeah.
or like some sort of like DLC or like maybe like a new controller or something, I would just keep adding to the collection. And he was
Okay.
like, dang it, Lily, the purpose of me giving you an allowance is so that you can save your money, and then it's supposed to teach you about finances. You can't just go out and spend it all the time. But
Mhm.
anything that I could buy for like posters, like memorabilia, figurines, all of that stuff, if it was video game related, like something that I liked, I wanted it. And
Yeah.
so growing up, like I would hoard all of this stuff, and then I would play all of these games. And during like school breaks, it was the worst. Like I was just stuck in the basement, hooked up on my Xbox,
Yeah.
just over and over again playing games and achievement hunting.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
remember there was one time in particular, one of my favorite series that I was introduced to during this time period. It was about winter break. I was like 14 years old. I had finally gotten Mass Effect, right?
Okay.
And the loading times for Mass Effect on console, like elevators, like it was legit like 5 minutes sometimes
Oh,
because of
yeah.
just how old the game was and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I remember I was so excited to play it. I had to finish all of my homework and stuff, but I fell asleep during one of the elevator scenes.
Oh,
And
no
I
way.
I fell asleep with the controller in my hand, and I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I was like, "Where am I?" And
Oh.
I remember I was staring at the Xbox like, "What the hell happened?"
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that I just fell asleep during this cutscene. But when I tell you, like, I was like into video games, oh, I was into video games. You could not
That's
separate me from them.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's I can relate to that because I was like, yeah, I still have my old Sega Genesis behind me
Mhm.
somewhere on the floor. It's like with the 32X and the Sega CD, and I
Mhm.
was all about that life. And I'm curious too. Like, it sounds like you were really, really deep into video gaming.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, like I'm older, I'm a lot older than you, and I'm okay saying that. It's just that's just life. But like back when I was a kid, it was like kind of nerdy to be into video games. Like people would like
Oh,
ridicule you.
absolutely.
Was it
Yeah.
like that for you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like a lot of the girls in my class were like very much so interested. Like growing up, I'll admit I was really a tomboy, and so like I wasn't like into skirts and dresses and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Dressing up for school, oh my God, I hated it. And my
Oh
dad would
yeah.
be like, "But you look nice. Get me out of this thing right now."
Yeah.
But all the boys in school would be like, "Oh, well, look at her. She can't do this." And I'd be like, "Yeah, do you want to look at my Xbox achievements? And I
No
own more
way.
games than you and more controllers. Who's really the better gamer here?"
Yeah.
Like those kinds of tits for tats would go on between like our homeroom classes and whatnot.
Hmm.
But a lot of the girls, I got picked on for it. And, even for like watching like a lot of anime, I was never one of those kids that like did the Naruto run and like the
Hmm.
weird hand signs. I would mind my business and like sit in the back of the classroom. And people would
Yeah.
still be like, she's so weird.
No
Like,
way.
I mean, but
Yeah.
now video games is like a job for me.
Yeah.
And for that, like, I'm super grateful. And like my dad, anytime I bring up to him, my streaming and stuff like that, he says that he's really proud. But
Hmm.
I remember, just a little over a decade ago, you were chastising me for being in the basement playing video games this much, Dad. And now
Oh,
look
no
at
way.
me.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, look at me now.
That's amazing. So your dad supplied you with everything you needed to play video
Absolutely.
games and
Mm-hmm.
very much influenced where you are today. Like, I'm
Yeah.
curious how, like, did he also introduce you to, I'm guessing he must have introduced you to like some cool movies and music and such too, right?
Absolutely. My dad is like 67 years old and I'm only 22. My dad had me really late.
Yeah.
So my dad, growing up, he wasn't necessarily into a lot of technology and stuff back then because it wasn't really popular.
Hmm.
But as it became popular in like the early 2000s, when I was born, he started collecting a lot of this stuff and then he was introducing it to me, to like have me pass time and stuff like that. And even growing up, he worked as a security guard, so a lot of the time I would get babysat by like siblings and whatnot, or like grandma. And then I would like be hooked on this stuff until he came back home, and
Hmm.
rinse and repeat like the morning routine and stuff I talked about earlier.
Right.
But he did introduce me to a lot of those medias, and he was pretty interested in himself. And even with technology, like my dad orders drones. He likes
No
having like
way.
cool, yeah, he likes having like cool little technology and stuff like that. And he's like, hey,
Yeah.
Lily, come help me set up this gadget and whatnot, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's always on his computer typing away, figuring out, what can he get
Oh,
next or what can he invest in next, those kinds of things. So we
oh,
both
that's so
share a love
cool.
for that stuff.
That's awesome. I love
Mm-hmm.
hearing that because my dad, I think he's like 73 and
Mm-hmm.
he's like chronically online.
Yeah.
He's got a bigger
Yeah.
TikTok following than me and like
Oh,
it's not that I'm like a
wow.
heavy hitter, but he's got like 18 or 20K followers at this point. I'm like,
Wow. Okay.
"Yo, okay, dad." I just like
Right.
introduced him to TikTok and then he just started posting stuff and people love
God.
him.
My
That's
dad, I was scrolling through his phone because he asked me to help him set up something on his phone. I noticed he has a TikTok app. And I was like,
oh.
why do you have a TikTok? But he also uses Twitch to watch my streams when he's at work sometimes, and like he'll
Oh,
come
no
in and he'll
way.
say hi and stuff.
Oh,
But
cool.
he's like a lot more tech savvy than I thought. I even
Mhm.
came downstairs and like I saw him figure out how to set up like a Google Chrome background and stuff, and I was like, "Who taught you that? I didn't teach you that, but
Yeah.
you're learning." Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, my dad, he actually just bought a PS5. He was so excited about it. I
Wow.
was like,
Oh,
he was like, I can watch all my movies and stuff on here,
yeah.
and I think he was really into like downloading movies and putting them on a thumb drive and
Hmm.
putting them in the. I could have like given him like my Nvidia Shield that I have that I'm not really using these days, but for him,
Hmm.
he was excited and he's happy. So I'm happy for
Yeah.
him. But yeah, I don't think he'll be playing God of War on that anytime soon.
And my dad, he also loves to collect movies. Recently, I
Okay.
was just sent like a little goodie box by a video game company for the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre game by Gun
Oh,
Interactive,
right. Yeah.
and they sent me a limited edition steelbook of like the Texas Chainsaw movie.
Hmm.
When I tell you this man yoinked it from me,
No
like
way.
I put a picture on Twitter of all this stuff, but he yoinked the movie away from me, and I was like,
No
oh, here it
way.
goes into his collection. So
Wow. you so you've seen that movie, right? Like I don't want
yeah,
to. Okay.
very
Okay.
good.
The the final shot when
Hmm.
Bubba's like thrashing his chainsaw and stuff, I legit
Yeah.
cry every time. I actually feel bad for him in that spot because I'm like,
Mm.
she got away. No, like I don't know if that makes me a weirdo, but I love like it's such a beautiful image too. Like
The way
it's
that they portray him in the films too is like, oh my god, it's really dark. It's like morbid, but like the way that they portray it is really good.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for that game. I can't wait for that to come out. I think
Mm.
it's next year, right? Like I think they pushed it back, but
Yeah, they pushed it back a little, but I'm definitely interested in it. It's something new, so.
hmm and I think that's a big part of like where the community is at for Dead by Daylight. Like
Hmm.
I don't want to say that we're always looking for a replacement. I think we're just looking for something to mix it up every once in a while, and
Yeah, of
I
course.
think that that's healthy for everybody. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I think DBD has like a lot of replay value. You know, we have like over 200 perks in the game. There's a lot of different play styles. You can go for like altruism, for like Sabo breakout, or like flashlight saves.
yeah.
You could be a gen doer, you could be like a
Hmm.
chaser, blah blah blah, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. Or you could just like be immersive. There's a lot of different play styles for DBD and a lot of different perks to help you get that out of the way. There's a
Yeah.
lot of content. I mean, you know, they drop content about like every 3 months or so.
Oh yeah.
And we
Yeah.
have like some hit licenses in the game from like, you know, Michael Myers from the Halloween series,
Yeah.
Demogorgon and, you know, Nancy and Steve from Stranger Things, and then
Oh yeah.
plenty of others. And, you know, at this point, Behavior has accomplished a lot under their belt with Dead by Daylight. And I
Hmm.
think this is also the reason why like the audience community just keeps like ever expanding, because you get people that have been excited for things like, you know, the Ring series and like Hellraiser, and they get pulled
Oh
into
yeah.
like the fandom of DBD over and over again. And then they start playing that. But at the same time, even myself, at about 6,000 hours or so, there are sometimes like I do get a little bit of the burnt out feeling. As much as I
Yeah.
do love Dead by Daylight, as much
Hmm.
replay value as it has, you know, different maps and everything else,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just refreshing. And I notice a lot of people tend to appreciate DBD more, you know, whenever they put it down and then come back. Like for
Hmm.
me, for example, recently I went away on vacation when I had my boyfriend come visit from out of town.
Yeah.
And so taking like, you know, a 40-hour work week for me and then some, because as a content creator, you know, there's outside stuff that you do as well. And
Oh
technically
yeah.
that's on the clock as well, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, having your life put online constantly and then producing content and then editing stuff and then making scheduled posts and then
Hmm.
interacting with like business emails and community and Discord, like keeping up with all of that stuff online and having it broadcasted all at once,
Yeah.
it is so exhausting sometimes. Like
Oh yeah.
genuinely, like I love my job, of course, but you
Hmm.
know, sometimes it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so taking it a break and like putting it down and then coming back to it feels brand new a lot of the time.
Oh,
And I
right
think that's
on.
what the community is seeking. There are a
Hmm.
lot of games that are similar ASIM wise that people are interested in. I don't necessarily think they want to see like, you know, the game go down, but
Hmm.
I guess kind of like microdosing essentially, you know, Dead by Daylight,
Yeah.
and then playing it as they feel, so that they feel like it's not as repetitive and they reduce the burnout and stuff. And that's normal. I feel like
Oh
that's pretty
yeah.
good. So,
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you touch on a really good point when it comes to, like, I think that some people don't really take into consideration that, yeah, what you do is it's a full time thing. It's basically 24/7. And the thing is, like,
yeah.
everything that you do, whether you're playing games for fun off stream, creating
Mhm.
content, streaming, you know, like it all takes place where you're sitting right now. So you've got
Mhm.
your work energy and trying to mix it with like the fun energy of like trying to
Yeah.
unwind. It's tough when you're
Mhm.
like physically in the same space because like I'm an IT guy, so
Mhm.
you know, I'm on my lunch break right now, and you know, going from work mode to having fun mode to
Mhm.
content creation, like all in the same space. I think there's something trying to find that balance of energy. I think is a real
I definitely
challenge.
relate to that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and now when it came to like playing games online, what first got you into online gaming? Because it sounds like you started out with like a lot of like you were talking about Tomb Raider and
Like a lot of single player action
yeah.
storyline. I actually started playing Battlefield 3 when it came out.
Okay.
Like I was like, I think that was actually like one of the first FPS games that I was introduced to. And it was like not really my type of game, but you know, I would see like one of my siblings play it or like a cousin played it, and I'd be like, well, this seems kind of interesting. Let me give it a shot. And
Hmm.
then obviously I was terrible at first,
Yeah.
but then I remember when I got my own console, I started playing it on my own time, and then I really picked it up, and I absolutely loved like the Battlefield series,
Oh,
like
right
especially
on.
Bad Company 2. Bad
Hmm.
Company 2 is like a little bit of an older game than Battlefield 3, but I still very much so appreciated it.
Yeah.
And I went from playing like, you know, every now and then to just about like playing if I could every single night, and then I would like jump into like my story mode games or stuff
Oh,
like that, or
cool.
just whatever I felt like.
Yeah.
But I think one of the favorite things for Battlefield 3 specifically was playing team deathmatch at like 1,000 tickets, and like having the tickets bleed out would be about a 30 minute, 45 minute to an hour long session
Oh,
worth
okay.
of a game,
Yeah.
because like the goal is to like, you know, hold different objective points while, getting kills and stuff like that, blah blah blah. Or like I'm sorry, that's for conquest, but for team deathmatch, getting X amount of kills, blah blah blah, like that kind of thing
Hmm.
was really really interesting to me, and
Oh,
it
cool.
was really fast paced as well.
Yeah.
So going with that over and over again really kept my brain stimulated. Of
Oh,
course, I
cool.
loved it.
Right on. Yeah, I tried Battlefield. I felt overwhelmed because it was more players, right? I think, and
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
vehicles and stuff. And I remember just being
Yeah.
so like, I can't stay focused. And
There's a
uh,
lot of elements going on at once. Yeah.
there is, yeah, and it's kind of ironic that I landed on Dead by Daylight because it's probably even
Hmm.
more like confusing than.
Yeah.
And when I first started playing, I actually uninstalled after about a month because I was like, I
Ooh.
just can't handle all these perks and these killer
Hmm.
powers, and my friend trying to teach me like
Yeah. It's
this
a
is
it's a lot of content in DBD.
yeah,
So.
it's pretty confusing. Now, I also wanted to talk about like your history on Twitch because I took a deep dive and
Hmm.
looked at some of your older content. And it looks like you're into art streams when you first got into Twitch. Like, how was that for you?
Ooh. I was doing art streams because I was on my laptop at the time, and like I wanted to stream video games, but I did not have a PC at the time. Like
Okay.
for the most part, up until like 2020, I was like a console gamer. Like sometimes
Hmm.
I would stream some of the games that I play on my Xbox and whatnot, but it was not Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
And then when I started streaming more art on my laptop, it would be like on and off, but it was never really consistent. And it was just to
Hmm.
pass the time a lot of the time, because during that point in my life, I was working on getting like, my visa for the UK and whatnot. And
Hmm.
so it was just something to help, time fly by, and then also work on my art skills as well.
Okay. That's
Hmm.
cool. Yeah, I saw some of your artwork. Like I saw um I don't know what technique you use, like if it
Hmm.
was, but I saw an illustration of John Boyega and
Oh
11 from Stranger
yes.
Things. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, that's beautiful. Like I was like
Hmm.
moved looking at
Yeah,
your work
that was
because.
through Photoshop, but like my art, in 2020 when the pandemic happened, I was actually working as a waitress, but I was put out
Hmm.
of my job, and so I was like, oh, I have nothing to do.
Oh,
Like
no
my whole
way.
schedule's free,
Yeah.
and so I took this time to kind of focus on a lot of the things that I wanted to focus on. So this was when I had just finished getting my PC, because it was around December that Christmas was, and like before the whole COVID thing blew up
Hmm.
in 2020. I ended up getting like a brand new PC, and I didn't really know how to like utilize it. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna like try to focus on improving my art. And
Hmm.
then I was like, I could also try streaming games now.
Yeah.
And then I was going through and doing that, and yeah, just kind of took off from there.
Oh, that's amazing. I never thought about that because, like, yeah, you when you again, like, just looking at your like your stream background and history and stuff,
Hmm.
it looks like you started focusing on Dead by Daylight, like, basically when the pandemic hit. So,
Yeah, I did.
yeah, that's what was that like for you transitioning to streaming Dead by Daylight as your main content?
Like as you said, it was very overwhelming at first, because there were, I mean, even when I was introduced into the game like 2019, I was playing it like a little bit before I got my full PC build on my laptop, and my laptop would like barely handle it.
Hmm.
And I remember when I was trying to play it, like I was so immersed because I was terrified, and I was like, "Oh
Oh,
my god!" Like they have like Michael Myers and like all
yeah,
these other killers, and I was like, "Oh my god, there's a lot going on."
yeah.
And I was, playing Claudette a lot of the time, and I was just like, "Oh wow, like I don't know if I can handle this." So I was playing Killer
Hmm.
primarily when I first started, because I
Okay,
could not handle Survivor, and I was playing
yeah.
Survivor alone too. So it's like
Ah,
I can't do this. Like I'm terrified, and I don't know what I'm doing. But then when I started playing for stream, I started playing Survivor, and then I'd be like, "Hey, I'm new at this game. If you guys want to join my lobby, you can." And then like we can learn and we can grow and help each other together,
yeah.
because I was always alone playing in like Survivor. I mean, I was looking for friends, and that's basically the whole purpose of my stream. But
Hmm.
I did not expect to get anywhere with it, and I didn't really expect to like get that deep into DBD either.
Yeah. That's really cool because, like, yeah, like it seems like just like everybody in content creation has their own journey. We all have our own
Mhm.
like growth patterns or whatever, but it seems like you really took off between
Hmm.
2020 to present. So would you say that was a big part of your success, was just like trying to find people, friends to play with? And
Not necessarily just
no.
that. I think another thing that also grew my stream and the art portion of what I do, I was also very interested in making like custom models for like DVD, like artworks and stuff like that, but it was 3D. And
Hmm.
so I remember I was like, you know what? I could like make more realistic versions of the survivors. And people were talking about, DVD getting like, visual updates such as maps. And then I was like, okay, but what about survivors?
Hmm.
And so I started out by, remaking and like working on updating survivor models like Claudette, like
Right.
Fang, and then all the others to make them more realistic. And that was like a huge part of my Twitter success as well. And
Hmm.
a lot of those posts kind of blew up. And then I started getting followed by, some of the bigger content creators, like Scorpion Z, the
Right.
Pigmain,
Hmm.
and then Cope, Killer and Survivor,
Oh,
and then a
cool.
couple of others. And then I was like, oh, I can keep going with this. And then
Hmm.
I remember specifically right before I got partnered in like August 2021,
Yeah.
the growth that I had from like July to August, my average viewers literally spiked from 55 to 100 plus. And then I was like,
Oh,
oh,
wow. Yeah.
like this all happened like so quick within a month.
Yeah.
And then I remember I got scared because I was like, what if I'm getting view botted or something? And then like all the new people that were following me, and I was like, I'm all over the place. I don't know how to
Yeah.
handle this. And
Yeah.
I was just winging it because I mean, coming from what I was used to, just like playing Survivor, and like my
Hmm.
community was like very small to medium size. I was like, it's okay, it's
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But then I started realizing how serious it was getting. I was like, ooh, maybe I should start taking this like a little bit more legitimately.
Hmm.
And then that's when I started focusing on it.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool. That I think that's amazing. Like hearing your story is, I think not just for me, but anybody listening will be very
mhm,
inspirational, because I do have a lot of people who listen to the podcast who are also content creators, or people who
mhm.
want to be more in the content creation space. So hearing your story, I think, is very meaningful, not just for me, but for other people out there as well.
Yeah, of course.
Um, oh shoot, I had something on my brain and it just escaped me.
Anything else
Happens.
related to like Twitch and the streaming scene
I
or?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was Twitter. I think that a lot of people, like, I think that what's happening right now in just content creation in general is
Mhm.
people are saying you got to be on TikTok, you got to be on YouTube, you got to
Mhm.
do Instagram Reels, you got to post on Instagram, all this stuff. But I
Mhm.
rarely see people talk about Twitter, and I think Twitter is like a really big
Oh, it really
way of
is.
growing as well, because
Mhm.
yeah, it's putting your opinions out there, showing
Mhm.
people who you are, and you'll find people who can relate to you. And that's how I found you, is through Twitter. So
Oh.
it's I think it's a really underrated platform that I think not enough people talk about. And you touched on that. So
And I think like Twitter overall, I think when you're new to Twitter and like you have nothing going on, it's like, God damn, my feed is so dry. But then
mhm,
when you start like, producing content, like putting stuff out there, I think
yeah,
Twitter is one of the best platforms because you do put out like very short tweets or very short to the point things. And that's what a lot of
mhm,
people are looking for.
yeah,
You know, a lot of the time, you get recommended stuff in like your TikTok feed or like your YouTube feed, but the majority of the time for people's content, that happens at a very random chance. There's not as
mhm,
much growth for, that kind of chance of being found on those platforms, I find.
yeah,
But on things like Twitter, like I said, it's short and to the point. A lot of people don't want to like watch, a 10-minute video in like the first 30 seconds is you explaining it. A lot of people just be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like go to the next one where it gets right
mhm,
to the action, or
yeah,
somebody that I've been watching for a while so that I'm comfortable with the content, those kinds
mhm,
of things.
yeah,
But on Twitter, you also pop up through people's recommendations by the liking system as well, because like
right,
people can see your likes in the feed and whatnot. And then
right,
on top of that, Twitter has its own version of recommendations, like, oh, this is like funny, or this is like gaming, or like
mhm,
recommended because of photography, which you've noticed you've like a lot of, blah blah blah. And then just by sponsored posts as well, those kinds of things. So I feel like
right,
Twitter's algorithm has a lot more of a chance
mhm,
of your content getting found, especially with the short and to the point info. I
yeah.
love that part about Twitter a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had some tweets get like a little bit of recognition here and there. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, I didn't use a single hashtag
No,
because
you
I
really
think,
don't have to use
yeah,
hashtags. Not at all.
I think that's like a big mistake because like when I see somebody post like a post and they have like 6 hashtags on there, I'm just like,
Yeah.
bro, this feels like a forwarded email at this point. I'm like, I'm just not gonna
Yeah.
read
And I think
it.
the algorithm also pushes down the more hashtags that you use because it's trying to like specify whose feed to put it in exactly
Yeah,
instead of if you were just like have the post be naked and just, short and to the point with your thoughts or with your content like an image or the video reel or whatever that you wanted to see. That
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. Because I think that I can say with a lot of confidence, Twitter knows what you're posting, and if
Mhm.
it's Dead by Daylight related, whether it's a
Mhm.
clip or a picture or just the context, it'll find the audience that
Yeah,
needs to
it
see it.
automatically categorizes that stuff and it's really helpful. You don't even
Yeah.
have to do the work yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, I've been getting more into it, and a former guest talked about like how they kind of found success by constantly responding to like the Dead by Daylight official Twitter account, and they would just
Mhm.
post like hot takes of their tweets and
Yeah,
stuff, and
that works as well.
yeah, there's a lot of different strategies, and I think that yeah, more people need to consider Twitter as a way of expanding your content, and it
Absolutely, I
definitely
agree.
doesn't get talked about enough.
Mm.
Um, we talked about a little earlier how you're a fog whisperer. How did you respond to that when you received news you were selected as a fog whisperer?
Honestly, I was like, "Ooh, wait, do I really want to accept this?"
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people have like their set opinion already. And I would just say, like, a lot of it seems to be shrouded in mystery and, like, oh, well, fog whisperers can't do this, and fog whisperers, they can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Please, that is not true. Like, I don't know what is going on, but I've been the same person, and I have not needed to censor myself, like,
Right.
through and through. Like, I'm literally the same person before and after getting fog whisperer. But a lot of people seem to think that, it's like this, like, holier than thou mentality and whatnot. I'm literally just the same woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Lily. I
Mm-hmm.
am also Lillipie101. I'm just a content creator. I'm also a human.
Yeah.
Like, please understand those things. But I was very excited, of course, but I was, like other people, skeptical, like, oh, well, maybe as a fog whisperer, I can't do that. And maybe as a fog whisperer, I can't do this. And, I have to make sure that I have like this and that. No, you don't. You
Mm-hmm.
actually do not. You need to be like a genuine person,
Yeah.
you know, you need to make sure that you enjoy the game, of course. And like I said, even if you're experiencing things like burnout, of course, you still have an overall appreciation for the game and whatnot. And, you try to do good by the community. That's
Yeah.
it. They're looking for like individuals that are transparent with their content and, just overall enjoy themselves. That's it. That's
Mm-hmm.
literally it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have other ideas and whatnot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I find it fascinating the way the community builds these narratives about things they don't
Yeah.
understand because
Yeah.
like they're like, oh, you're just a shill. Oh, you're just a shill for behavior. You're just a Dead by Daylight, like,
Absolutely
you're on
not.
the payroll. Like I had that violin chick on my show a while back, and I was
Mhm.
like, so what do you do with your millions of dollars you get paid by I was joking, right? But like people
Yeah.
honestly believe that. They honestly believe that like y'all are making millions of dollars um as part of this program you're in. And
Mhm.
I think it's amazing that you're part of the program. And um from the content that I've been consuming through your Twitch channel and your Twitter, and
Mhm.
um I'm like, yeah, we need people like you in this community. We need to represent, because like you said, there's so many different people in this Dead by Daylight community, cultures, sexualities,
Mhm.
genders, um and I think that I would say in the last like year, couple of 2-3 years, I would say they've done a good job of acknowledging and recognizing the diversity in the community. Like we see
Absolutely.
these uh, beautiful events that they put on, like the Pride events, the Pride charms, um, really cool cosmetics that will
Yeah.
have meaning to a lot of
Mhm.
people in the community. So
A lot of the cultural cosmetics as well, I've been finding. So I've noticed like a lot of the survivors do have like a form of the traditional like culture and whatnot, or like nationality kind of like
Hmm.
integrated into some of the cosmetics.
Yeah.
And I've been noticing that, and I think that's really nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
think it's great, and yeah, and again, like myself, I'm native Canadian. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have that representation just yet, but I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
banging down their door and say, "Hey, come on, man! Like, where are the natives at? Like, I know that there's not a lot of them in America. There
Mm-hmm.
are, but in terms of representation, like, we're in a really
Yeah.
cool spot with. I don't know if you've watched that show Reservation Dogs. It's like
No, I
really,
have not.
it's a really popular show. I think it's on FX, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about Native kids living on a reservation and just their friendship and kind of brotherhood, sisterhood that they have together. And
Oh,
to me, it's really meaningful watching that and consuming that. So I'm like,
it sounds beautiful.
come on, behavior, let's get with it. So we're gonna start banging down their door and say, hey, come on, where's our Native American brothers at in the game? So um, now I'm gonna ask you a loaded question
Mm-hmm.
that I
Oh,
like
here
to
I
put
go.
people on the spot. This is a softball for you. What are your thoughts on the current state of Dead by Daylight?
Ooh, I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Primarily I play Survivor, and on the weekends, typically I would like to play like, Survivor with like subs and whatnot. So like if you're a sub in the community and whatnot, we just go through the queue system and like we play games together. And this is for people that, maybe they don't want to really experience solo queues. So like we have our own system, and like maybe if you need a certain challenge, like hey, I need to repair X amount of gens, blah blah
Okay.
blah, like okay, well we'll help you complete gens in this challenge. Or like hey, I'm really
Oh,
kind of low
cool.
on blood points, like okay, well we can bring like flan or like bloody
Hmm.
party streamers or like cake or whatever you need. Or oh well, I need X amount of people to leave through the exit gate before I leave. Like
Okay.
those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
like, for tomes and archives and whatnot.
Oh,
But
cool.
then also just general grinding, especially during events and whatnot. Sometimes, like for example, the winter event just started up the 8th, and so
Right.
this past weekend I've been helping people complete their challenges.
Oh,
We've been
cool.
grinding out stuff and like doing like the snowman high fives and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that. It's like
Right
just
on.
super cute fun stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy doing that as a community because I want everybody to feel included. I don't want people to have to like suffer all the way through solo queue, or like go through and not have their stuff completed, so everybody's aware, those kinds
Hmm.
of things. I just think it's a really nice helpful thing, and it's also just a really good reward for subs as well,
Oh, yeah.
and that kind of stuff. But I will say, although like it's been like 6,000 hours, so there's not much in the game that really bothers me anymore.
Yeah.
Like for example, a lot of the time people will see like, oh, I recognize this is Lillipie 101, and so sometimes like I'll just start getting hit on hook, or
Oh,
like nodded
really?
at, or like slugged out,
Wow.
or like just BM'd a lot overall in the game. A lot of the time I would just laugh at it.
Hmm.
Like I know a lot of people on Twitter are like, oh, Lillipie 101 is a smelly survivor man, and like she
Oh.
whines anytime it doesn't go her way. I
Oh,
will literally be
jeez.
laughing while the killer like hits me on hook,
Yeah.
and I'll just go next. And I
Yeah.
never really say anything in in-game chats either,
Hmm.
because what's the point? Just continue, go next. If they wanted to
Yeah.
say something to me, they can write on my Steam profile, or they can come to stream. I'm working. I don't have
Hmm.
time for that. And I
Yeah.
started to realize trying to be like really angry at the game, especially on stream, oh my god, it brings like the whole vibe of like the actual game down. And
Yeah.
on top of that, who really wants to just watch somebody complain? If I start watching
Yeah.
somebody complain over and over again,
Yeah.
it brings the vibe down. It's kind
It
of like,
does.
yeah, I don't like that. I'd
Hmm.
rather just like laugh those things off genuinely. Like
Yeah.
at one point in content creation, did it annoy me? Absolutely. But I'm
Hmm.
just like, hey guys, don't take me off of the hook. If you have reassurance, use it for the extra time to get gens done.
Hmm.
Great, I'm going next.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But I've noticed, even if I'm using Anon mode, or even the people that post in like my Discord as survivors, they get BM'd a lot.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's a matter of like, if they use head on, they get BM'd because it's considered toxic, or they get a
Oh,
flashlight save, it's
yeah.
BM and it's considered toxic, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't like specifically pinpoint why this stuff started happening, but the only
Hmm.
thing that I can think of is I know behavior wanted to give killers, like a buff, because I think the casual player base deserves to also have a fair chance.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, MMR, whether or not it's doing its job, it can still be very difficult for somebody that's new to the game. And that's
Mhm.
understandable because there's a lot of pressure on you as killer. You've
Yeah.
got to micromanage your objectives like the gens, and then also maybe defending your totems if you have hexes, and
Yeah.
then also utilizing your perks, your killer's power, and then also trying to make sure that you also get hooks in between that. I think
Mhm.
that's a very understanding thing, and it can be very overwhelming. It can be frustrating. I get it. But I think a lot of the casual player base, after 6.1 specifically, when they did buff Killer, they
Right.
made it so that killers automatically have like 2 stacks of Stabiffle because it's a
Mhm.
10% reduction for the cooldown
Yeah.
between successful M1s. Okay. Survivors also get the 10% reduction whenever they get the movement speed after getting hit. Again, understandable. And then also, Bloodlust was buffed as well to a
Yeah.
degree.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, especially on Bloodlust, were like, okay, well, wait, what's happening? Because if you recall, there was a Bloodlust experiment over the weekend a
Mhm.
long time ago
Yeah.
where they removed Bloodlust because they were working on the maps and, taking on Infinites and they wanted to see what was going on. And a
Mhm.
lot of people did not struggle having Bloodlust turned off.
Yeah.
But a couple of other people obviously complained, saying that, maybe killers need it.
Mhm.
But then I feel like I've noticed in general, they've also given killers a 10% increase for kicking pallets and gens and whatnot.
Yep.
Gens
Yeah.
also lose 2% progress when you kick them. Like,
Mhm.
very through and through. Like, these are just like things to make sure that, like, maybe like the killers that are typically placed at like C and D tier maybe get like bumped up at least a little bit.
Mhm.
And they've also made it so that gens are like 90 seconds, which again
Yeah.
is understandable. The casual player base may need it. But with that being said, it has started to become a phenomenon. I find that they use these things to their advantage. You've heard the phrase, give somebody an inch, they take a mile.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I've started to see a lot of that because it
Mhm.
is a little bit easier to
Yeah.
do, a steamroll of a group and whatnot
Mhm.
because you have these things available. But on top of that, I've noticed a lot of gen stacking perks as well. They said that they wanted to increase gen time so that killers didn't feel the need to bring, X amount of perks.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just the thing. Because of how
Mhm.
large this community is and the good faith aspect, that's not always going to happen. And that's
Yeah.
okay. But I think it makes a very difficult trend for Survivor because
Mhm.
a lot of the times games will go very linear. It seems like it's either do gens or die, and
Yeah.
I feel like that can make the gameplay a little stale. And I still have fun, of course, but
Yeah.
I think it's something that the casual player, like Angry Joe 246 gets home from a shift.
Yeah.
He does not have all the time in the world to play the
Yeah.
video game like
Mhm.
I do because it's my job.
Yeah.
So he might just log off for the day if his first match is a face camping clown at 4 gens because 1 gen popped.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then a lot of the times in solo queue, especially, it's very difficult because, you can't tell what your other teammates are doing. You don't know them. You can't communicate to them that you need
Mhm.
challenges done or that you need to cleanse totems, that like you want to try to get this specific achievement. Like you can't do all of that. You
Yeah.
can't say that you need help in that aspect. You can
Mhm.
only just, again, have the good faith aspect. And then with certain perks, for example, like eruption 25 seconds of the incapacitated status.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no working on the gen, there's no healing, there's no doing anything. You cannot
Yeah.
do anything
Yeah.
except for just stand there.
Yeah.
And in solo queue, it's hard to make the call of, oh, is this person getting ready to go down? You do
Mhm.
not know.
Yeah.
And so they could be like somewhere out of sight, and again, you just don't know. And I feel like there are a lot of people like, yeah, we'll just run open-handed and bond or run bond and this and that. I shouldn't necessarily have to,
Yeah.
just because
Mhm.
these are the kinds of things that people have really been talking about, especially in my community and a lot of others. And a lot of
Mhm.
my tweets recently, where I've been talking about these, have kind of like blown up anywhere between 500 to over 1K interactions and likes and
Wow.
whatnot, because people are noticing the same frustrations, and I get it, I do.
Mhm.
But I think for me, it's less detrimental because this is my job and I can laugh it off because I have all the time in the world to try to like seek out better games. But the
Yeah.
casual player does not.
Mhm.
From the killer standpoint, there's nothing that survivors can have in their kit where it can like really compete with it. If I wanted to run like the nastiest build available,
Mhm.
I guarantee you like there's not much that the survivors could do. and not that's not to say like necessarily like the survivors would like always get steamrolled, because there's always going to be somebody better than you,
Oh yeah.
but it's just that the probability of me steamrolling them is a lot higher than them steamrolling me if I wanted to play like an absolute monster.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but that's not how I have my version of fun.
Mhm.
My version of fun for killer typically means like I get good mind games, and even if that means like I end up getting like a 0K or a 2K or a 4K, that matters less to me, the number of kills I get, but
Mhm.
whether or not I'm able to pull off something fancy or just kind of like showcase my skill or talent.
Yeah.
But a lot of people focus more on kills, and I think that's something that's making it very draining, because they will go
Mhm.
through any length to get it because of the gratification,
Yeah.
even if it means that they don't get as many blood points and whatnot. I've even done like an experiment myself. Several killers have, you know, where if you try to like hurry up and secure a kill very early on, okay, well then the survivors have nothing left to do but gens, and then the gens get done. Okay, but gens are going too fast.
Yeah.
But you have all these slowdowns and stuff. Scott Dunn made a very good tweet about it, and a
Mhm.
couple of other people in the community that are like figureheads, like Odds, have talked about it as well.
Mhm.
But Scott's take I really agree with. The gens are going too fast cycle. Gens are going too fast. Okay, I tell them about one survivor so that I can apply pressure. Okay, well the other survivors have nothing to do but gens. Then
Mhm.
they escape. Gens are going too fast, and then they get stuck in a cycle over and over again, where people
Oh
are
yeah.
not properly managing the little things that happen in their killer games,
Mhm.
and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
fine. But I just feel like the casual player cannot differentiate between all of the knowledge that's needed in DBD, especially as killer, when you have to like micromanage everything.
Mhm.
And that's understandable. But I feel like we should probably have like a healthy way of like introducing people into these mechanics so that they don't fall for like, the cycle that Scott Junn was talking
Oh
about.
yeah.
And so that they don't make the survivor experience miserable. And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I think survivors can be annoying as well
Oh yeah.
whenever I play killer.
Yeah.
But it's just I've not noticed it to the extent that I have. I have more bad games on Survivor a lot of the time than when I play Killer. And I play Killer off stream, and
Mhm.
I'll go try to go through and try to get like adepts, or I'll try to like go through an achievement hunt and whatnot.
Mhm.
Or sometimes I'll play on stream if I'm really tired of Survivor, I'll just go play Killer on stream for a few hours, because
Yeah.
it's actually a little stale for me,
Yeah.
and I
Oh
just
yeah.
can't stand to play it myself.
Mhm.
But I think behavior took a step in the right direction, trying to make it so that the casual players, can have a good time.
Yeah.
But for the people that are already experienced and for the people that already know what they're doing, they're taking a lot of advantage out of it and making the
Mhm.
survivor experience miserable. And
Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to like kill the game, no. But
Mhm.
I've noticed a lot of people just kind of like drop off from playing Survivor, or
Yeah.
like the cycle will continue and people will be like, okay, well, I'm frustrated playing Survivor. I'm going to go play Killer the same way.
Mhm.
And then I can take out my frustrations. It's just like a bad cycle.
It
And I'm
is.
hoping that they introduce something to like kind of like knock that off. And
Mhm.
I think balance wise, they're going in the right direction. But if we could like take a step away from like the adventurous stuff, I
Yeah.
think we would be in a little bit better spot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you raise a lot of really good points. Like I think one of the biggest issues right now is gens are the only focus of the game right now. It seems like chasing is
Yeah.
not chasing is like the best part of Dead by Daylight, but right now, there's little incentive for killers to chase survivors, and
Absolutely.
little
Especially with
incentive.
the 3 gen meta, just it's
Yeah,
real nasty.
I go into random streams, and I'm shook at how many killers I run into in streams. Like I'll just be going through the directory, popping in and checking
Hmm.
people out, and they'll be like, "Okay, here's my 3 gen right here." Like as soon as the round starts, here's my 3 gen. I just got to protect
Hmm.
these 3 gens. I'm like, bro, that's so boring. Like to me, that's boring. And like,
Yeah, for me it's very
yeah,
boring as well. I think calling out the 3 gen is like a very good thing to have in the back of your mind, but if
yeah,
you're defending it from 5 gens, you are drawing out the match for a
yeah,
very long time.
hmm,
It's not something that I can stand to have
yeah,
personally whenever I play killer. Like sitting stationary and like only kicking and not focusing on the chases. Some of the best parts is like literally outplaying a nerd.
hmm.
Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry, but like getting a good mind game on a survivor and then being like, yeah, you thought you had me, but you
yeah,
didn't.
yeah,
I think that's like a very good rewarding feeling, but people don't care about that feeling.
yeah,
That satisfaction only comes from the end result, and that's getting the kill. And
hmm,
that doesn't matter, like no matter how they get it, like that
yeah,
is the gratification. And to
hmm,
me that's just not fun, because it just feels very cheap whenever I play killer that way. It
yeah.
really does.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that a lot too when I quote unquote win as killer. Sometimes it just doesn't feel good because it's like, well,
Mm,
I kind of proxied and tunneled that trial, and like I got a huge advantage in the beginning, and they were just in a losing standpoint from the get go, or
mm.
they got Shelter Woods, and you basically auto win as killer as soon as
Yeah.
you
Oh
load in.
God.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that, but yeah, I was
Mm,
just curious to get your thoughts on like the current state of the game, and I always like
mm-hmm.
to get everybody's perspective on that for the people who come and be on the podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I wanted to talk to you some more about like some community stuff, and to
Mm-hmm.
anybody listening, this next section might be a bit of a trigger for you, so just a little bit of a trigger warning. We're going to talk about hatred. We're going to talk about racism, and I did run it by Lily before we started recording, so I didn't want to like spring this on you, and because I know this is probably a trigger for you as well.
Mm.
Um, but hatred and racism is something that runs pretty rampant in this community, and you've been on the receiving end of that for
Yeah, I
months now,
have.
right? Like, can you
Yeah.
did you want to talk about tell people like how it started and how we got to this point now?
I think overall, like a lot of it, I mean, I'm just at this point I am a public figure. Like
Hmm.
there's no denying it. Given the CCV that I have and the community that I've built and like the presence that I have online, I'm a public figure and with no doubt that comes with criticism, but because of the color of my skin and because of my identity, as a pansexual, but also woman
Hmm.
of color, specifically black, this is just something that happens, and I recognize that. I've been on the receiving end of discrimination in real life long before I ever started streaming. And
Hmm.
I know I've only been around on this earth for 22 years, but at this point, I think I can say I'm used to it. Should I have to say that? No, not really.
Hmm.
But at this point, it's just one of those things I expect, and I just entertain it as one of those things where it's like, hey, it's always going to be there. But for me personally, I've dealt with it so much to the point where I've just become numb at it. I can laugh at it. Like it's
Hmm.
like you're that mad. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Like it really doesn't bother me all that much anymore.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, because I have that level of energy, a lot of the times people will come in and like I have been like called straight slurs before, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, and then now what? Like, am I supposed to cry or something? Like,
Yeah.
am I supposed to feel like, oh God, like you've just ended my whole career?
What's the end game with that?
Like what's the end game? I
Yeah.
literally do not care.
Yeah.
Like whether you're calling me a slur or not, at the very end of the day, I still have my position secured.
Hmm.
I've still got my job and I've still got a lot of great things going for me. And
Yeah.
here you are. Like,
Yeah.
if anything, I feel pity for you.
Yeah.
Like thinking that this is something that affects me. It
Hmm.
doesn't. But the thing that I will say, it's just tiring because there are plenty of other pillars in the community that deal with it on a much smaller level, but the fact that they have to deal with it at all is frustrating.
Yeah.
I can handle it, but I know some other people can't. And that's not
Hmm.
to say that it's like a bad thing or like a weak thing.
Hmm.
It's just that there are other content creators that look like me
Hmm.
and they come in different shades as well, and they may be teased or harassed or bullied for a different reason. And it's sad that they have to go endure that because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
They don't understand why it's happening. Like there is no logical reasoning behind the racism stuff. There's nothing that they can do either. But I would rather harbor it on my end and make
Hmm.
it so that these people come to me, and then people around me that look like me get the strength to be like, okay, well, maybe I can be like her
Yeah.
and it doesn't phase me like her, those kinds of things. Because if I were to stop streaming, there would probably be a lot of people that would lose inspiration because it's like, well, damn, like if she got bullied off of the platform just because of the color of her skin, like what makes me think that I can do it, blah blah blah,
Hmm.
those kinds of things. And I've had people in my community express their concerns and their frustrations where they've had to end their stream because they've been hate rated,
Wow.
or they've just stopped streaming because mentally they could not handle the amount of times that they would get harassed on the basis of the color of their skin because they have on like face cam, or people just
Hmm.
found out that they were like a person of color or black,
Hmm.
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I think taking it with like the head on approach that I have now, because I'm used to it, I will take anybody on. I do
Hmm.
not care. Like I will
Yeah.
shout it from the rooftops that I do not care. Like you
Hmm.
will never bully me off of this platform.
Yeah.
But for my earlier streaming days, I had somebody that was very dedicated, I'm talking about since 2018. Like, you saw how far back my content went.
Mhm.
From 2018, even when I was doing art streams before actually like streaming video games, there was somebody that was following me around, an entire group of people. This person created over 800 accounts across
Whoa.
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, even in-game launchers such as the Ubisoft launcher for Rainbow Six, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. um any way that they could, they would like spam my Discord with like gore pictures. They would DM me
Wow.
gore pictures. They would send emails, talking about how they were gonna like lynch and burn and assault me and stuff like that.
Wow.
And they would follow me with like multiple accounts on Twitch. And this was before all of the hate rate stuff was implemented.
Mhm.
So it was out of hand. And this was before like the chat verification stuff was up. So could you imagine like being followed like 10 different times at once with hateful names just
Yeah.
because of the color of your skin and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
That's the reason why I'm so numb to it at this point,
Mhm.
because like you calling me like a singular slur when I've had to deal with shit like that, like
Yeah.
it does nothing to me. I feel nothing.
Mhm.
And in fact, like, I've literally taken these people and I've broken some of them.
Yeah.
I've said it recently on my stream: you will bend or you will break. I
Yeah.
am going to be here to stay. There's nothing that you can do to persuade me to like stop streaming because of your racism or because of your like your allegations or harassment and things like that. There's nothing in this world that can stop me
Mhm.
as Lillipie101. I have a really great support system. I have a lot of good people in my community, and I've built a lot. Just for somebody to burn it behind a keyboard,
Mhm.
never. I would never give that up. And I stay resilient because I know there are people out there like me that deserve to have their voice heard, just like mine,
Yeah.
and deserve to have these communities. We all share the common denominator of liking gaming, of loving DBD. And I'll be damned if I let somebody take it away just
Mhm.
because they don't like the color of my skin. Not now, not ever. I would
Yeah.
never give that up. Ever.
Yeah. And I applaud you for that, because like that, and that's one of the major reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I was like, wow, there's somebody who I aspire to be like, like
Mm-hmm. Thank
if
you.
anybody says like I'm on the receiving end of ageism a lot, people will be like,
Mm-hmm.
you're old, why are you playing video games? I'll cry for like the rest of the night. And like if anybody says anything kind of like a slur towards me, I'm just like, oh man, I'm done for the weekend. I'm just not. I'm just
It
gonna go
really does put
bundle
you
up in
down in
my
the dumps.
bed.
And it's sad
Yeah,
that people are like that, but they feel so emboldened because they're behind a keyboard.
yeah,
And a lot of the time, I've noticed that, a lot of my peers, they speak out against it. But, for my white peers, they could be doing the same thing as me and they will, like, not receive any criticism or even a fraction of the criticism that I
yeah,
receive.
yeah.
Like, again, I was like called out on Twitter, whatever, because I insulted the killer's genital size. And somebody said, like, I was legitimately like body shaming.
Oh, I
I
saw that. Yeah,
I
the
don't know
mental
the size of
gymnastics.
the mental gymnastics. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know the size of like the killer's crotch area. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
that. Like, I just say these things as a joke. Or
Hmm.
like I said that the killer was like, an asshole or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's banter. It's legitimately just banter.
Yeah.
As long as I'm not like insulting the person, like let's say the person behind is like Henry Harrison. I'm not calling Henry Harrison an asshole. I'm calling the spirit that just like hit me on hook at 4 gens. Like, okay, you little asshole.
Yeah.
All right, I see
Yeah.
ya.
Yeah.
That's not me like calling like that dude an actual a-hole. Like, that's
Hmm.
not me actually insulting him. It's
Yeah.
just banter.
Yeah.
But plenty of people do this. Like some of the top content creators, Otofu,
Hmm.
Otstarva, um, Cope, plenty of the others
Hmm.
have all said something along the lines of, banter.
Yeah.
They're not calling people slurs. They're not saying hate speech or anything,
Hmm.
but, they do those same things. And then
Yeah.
a lot of the time, just being a woman is enough for people to be like, oh, well, she's so emotional, or like she's so toxic, she's so fragile. And I will literally be like, with a straight face, like I am, like right now, just saying, "Oh my god, this person's like such an asshole."
Yeah.
Like, just like playing it off because it's
Yeah.
banter.
Yeah.
But I will receive criticism, but I'll also receive criticism for it because I'm a Black woman at that, like the
Hmm.
double whammy.
Yeah.
And it's sad that I have to say that. And like for a long time, I never mentioned it because I didn't want to like pull into like, oh, I don't want people to say that I'm playing the race card. But at this point, what else is it?
Yeah.
If these white people are doing the same thing that I'm doing,
Hmm.
and I'm doing the same thing, but it's terrible when I do it, what is
Yeah.
the difference?
Yeah.
Even recently, there was somebody now on Twitter. It turns out they were called out multiple times for telling people to like unalive themselves, right?
Wow.
Telling them to commit suicide. Several people,
Hmm.
several times. Apparently, they ended up making 10 accounts just to tell one person on Twitter to off themselves.
Wow.
They also went to lengths went through the lengths of calling somebody the N slur, F slur in post game chat because they did not like them for
Wow.
playing a certain character, something like that.
Mhm.
They were called out for that. And they came into my chat before I even knew all of this stuff saying, oh, yeah, she's just a toxic piece of shit. She's a bitch. And show me the evidence where these people did this since you want to expose them so bad. And
Mhm.
I've started to learn that this is exactly what those people want. They want you to try to perform the mental gymnastics for them. And
Yeah.
even if you do explain your point to them, they're just going to shut it down anyways because they don't care what you have to say. They've already prejudged you
Yeah.
based on the color of your skin or based
Mhm.
on the fact that you're a woman or both. They've
Yeah.
already judged you on that basis alone. So
Mhm.
anything that comes out of your mouth, they're not going to perceive it that way anyways. And so I learned to just stop engaging with that. And I told him, if you want to go see the proof so bad of these people that have been harassing me, and, calling me out of my name and whatnot, go click the link that I have in my Twitter post. I'm not linking it here for you, and I'm not
Mhm.
doing the work.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a dog either. I don't need to rub your nose in your mess. You
Mhm.
can go figure it out for yourself since you want to come to me and call me all sorts of names. They even started threatening me and like saying, oh, well, I'm at your feet like a dog. No, bitch, I'm at your neck.
Yeah.
Saying that I was only relevant because, I was with my boyfriend and like I blew off my boyfriend. Misogyny as
Yeah.
well. All of those things. I'm sorry, but I was a fog whisperer, partner, had my CCV. I have a larger CCV than Trickster Shadow, my
Mhm.
boyfriend
Yeah.
at the time now. And this was before we even started dating. So again, like the misogyny just leapt out because they've already prejudged me.
Mhm.
But then I found out that this individual was calling me all of these things and saying all these horrible things. And then it turns out you're telling people to kill themselves. You're calling people slurs. But
Mhm.
I'm so terrible and I'm so bad.
Yeah.
I haven't even done a fraction of the things that you've done.
Yeah.
But you can see the mental gymnastics that these people will try to go through and figure out, well, how can I paint her as a bad guy? And they
Mhm.
will grasp for anything and everything. And that's when I learned they don't care. Don't
Yeah.
even try to argue with them. Just call
Oh,
it what
yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of what you're saying is advice that I received from a friend of mine many, many years
Mm-hmm.
ago when he's like he was going through some stuff. He was on the receiving end of lots of people saying hateful and like rude
Mm-hmm.
things to him. And I said, "Hey man, like I sent him a DM. I was like, dude, are you okay? Like I just want to check in on you, just want to make sure you're
Mm-hmm.
okay." And he's like, "Oh yeah, man." He's like, "I'm fine. Like I don't know these people." And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"If I get upset or if I get offended, if I let them take space in my head, he's like, that's how they win. So I just win by like giving them no power over me because he's like the
Mm-hmm.
moment I get upset, the moment I get offended, they've won. So he's like, I just don't get offended. I don't let these things
Mm-hmm.
bother me." And I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah, this stuff doesn't bother me. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. So that's another way of thinking about it for anybody who's listening. If you're any kind of part of any kind of marginalized group, it's a little bit easier to kind of digest these things by saying, okay, well, this person,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Schmo 69, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to give him my energy because that's how he quote unquote wins and that's what he wants. And I just won't,
And like, in all
yeah.
honesty, like the fact that a lot of these people are jumping through mental gymnastics to try to argue with me that red equals blue and stuff like that. At
Mm,
this point, like I said, I don't even argue. I just be telling people to shut the hell up. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
like there's nothing that I can say or do to convince you because I'm literally like giving you and presenting the facts to you. You just don't want to accept it because of what I am. Like, what
Yeah.
am I gonna do at that point other than telling you to just shut up?
Yeah.
Like, actually shut up. Some people have never been I feel like some people have like never been told that enough. Shut up. Shut
Yeah.
up. Like you need to actually stop
Oh,
talking.
yeah.
Like if this is gonna be you, stop. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear it. Nobody
Yeah.
needs to hear it. Just stop talking.
Oh, exactly. In another thing that came as a result of all of the tweets that I saw and
Mm-hmm.
like this very prominent figure on in the Dead by Daylight community who
Mm-hmm.
willingly accepts people who are hateful, racist bigots and
Mm-hmm.
champions them and swifts with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing is, the person's argument was, I can't control what they say, but guess what? You can control the people you surround yourself with. So if you're going
Absolutely.
to associate yourself with hateful people, like what other
Like,
conclusions can we draw
right.
there?
I'm saying, and I don't know, I don't understand how a lot of the time, people think, oh well, I didn't know that they were saying that. No, you knew. Well, yeah, they may be a bigot, but I don't personally believe in it. Yes, but you're supporting them.
Yeah.
Like if somebody were to come to if somebody were to come to me and say, "Hey, Lil, one of your closest friends, it turns out that they're like super transphobic." I'm not trans. I have
Mhm.
trans friends,
Yeah.
yes. I don't have trans family members, no. But even if I had no ties to any trans individuals, I would snip that person off in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And that's not to say, because, it's just because like I can relate to people like and I have trans friends, right?
Mhm.
No, I would snip them off because I'm just not a piece of shit,
Yeah.
simply put.
Yeah.
Like even if you don't have trans individuals or marginalized people that you can relate to or sympathize with that are being targeted, you should just want to snip those people off
Yeah.
because you're not a hurtful human. I'd hope that would be the case,
Mhm.
but it seems like it's not as black and white for some people, and
Yeah.
that's sad. Like
It
I don't
is.
understand that. I
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah. I've had unfortunately I've had multiple instances like that where somebody said something that was like, that's racist. What you just said, that was actually racist, and I'm
Yeah.
not okay with that, and I can't play with you anymore. I can't be like, if you're going to talk like that, I can't be your friend anymore.
I'm saying.
And like, I like to give people a chance to like explain themselves, but like sometimes people are just like, well, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect, well, yeah, it does, like it does. Like, what are you saying about me when we're not talking? Like it's so weird. So I think that, yeah, accountability is something that people struggle with. And it's really unfortunate when people like you and me, we're the ones saying, hey, can you please be accountable? And they're like double down. They're like, no, I'm still going to do this and that. And I'm not, it's not my problem. It's, I'm not racist. Like when somebody says I'm not racist, like,
oh my God.
bro,
like
that's a red
racism is
flag.
also not just black and white either. Like
Yeah.
you don't like in order to be racist, you don't necessarily have to call somebody a slur. Like
Yeah.
microaggressions definitely exist. Like the
Yeah.
whole Sadako thing that we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Like your refusal to like understand and like educate yourself, like implies that to a degree you don't care. And yes, that can be racist. Like
Yeah.
racism is not just slurs.
Yeah.
Racism is not just excluding people because of the color of their skin and other things like that. It can also be microaggressions, which people a lot of these days do not understand.
Yeah.
Racism is not like one thing. Racism can be many things.
Oh yeah.
First and foremost.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's why I had a chat with that person. And I said, hey, like, I know you don't see it this way, but here's how I see it. And here's how a lot of other people will perceive that. So I was like, for this reason, I can't play with you anymore.
Yeah.
Can't be your
Good
friend
job
anymore.
on you as well.
Yeah, that's just like, and me, like I'm in the grand scheme of things, I'm a pretty small fry in the content creation world. I can't imagine having a platform like the person who we will not name right now, but having that big a platform and just going, oh, I don't have control over what they say. Like that's not me. What do you want me to do? Like
I'm just saying, if you and I can do it, he definitely can.
Yeah.
You have the power to.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. For weird reasons. And then of course in the end that person played the victim card, and it's like,
oh my God,
dude, that tweet was like, it was so brutal. It was just filled with all of the things that we people of color fear, and then that's white people tears. Like there's nothing that people can weaponize more online than white people tears. And
oh God, it's disgusting.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because that is how I sadly discovered your content, was through like seeing all these tweets going back and forth and me being curious. And then I was like popping in your streams. I was like, wait, why are people attacking you? Like you're super chill, you're funny, like you got some sussy names on your Claudette. I was gonna.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that.
Oh my God.
Let's just say this. There was one of the first ones I saw was a play on words with eggnog. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was outrageous. I was like, okay. It's so funny though. It made me laugh. And the people that are in your community, like I can tell all of you are very close, and like the people you're swiffing with, y'all are
Mhm.
bantering and having a good time. And
Yeah.
you told that story about the move thought thing, and that
Oh
just
my
it cracked me
god,
up because like the
please.
thing is, so many male content creators say stuff like that, and nobody
And a lot worse,
bats an
by the
eye. Oh
way.
yeah,
Like, oh my god.
yeah. And so I think that day you had your name move thought, and
Oh
it's
my
just funny.
god. Like, I'm sorry, like, I'm like, let's be real here. Considering who I am at this point, I could literally call somebody like a fart head and they'd be like, "Oh, and so now she's weaponizing bodily anatomy against me
No,
and this and that." Like,
yeah,
please, it could
yeah,
be anything at this point. They would still complain about it. I'm just saying, man.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. It's nuts to me, but I'm glad you've got like a really good coat of armor. Is that the word? Like you've got a really
I
good.
think I think overall, like for me and like what your friend was telling you, like the advice that he gave you a few years ago, I think that advice really works.
Mhm,
But I feel like it's like fortified by having like a good support system. Like you may be like a smaller content creator, and so
mhm,
like your community could be strong, but it could be very small. And like a lot of the times, the people that are like raining down on you could outnumber you voice wise. But having a very good support system,
mhm.
especially when a lot of the time the tactic is gaslighting,
Oh yeah.
is something that reinforces overall, that you're doing the right thing and that
Mhm.
you're not getting gaslight by these individuals and, you're not needing to worry about XYZ, those kinds of things. But I
Yeah.
do understand, when you don't have like a huge platform, it can be difficult. So
Mhm.
making sure that you have a good support system is something that really helps.
Yeah.
I've noticed that even from when I was a much smaller content creator.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, because
Mm.
we touched on earlier, like I had falling out with somebody like over
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago at this point,
Yeah.
and people still remind me of it, and I'm like, you're so weird. Like you're still holding on to this
Yeah.
interaction I had with somebody once, and we agreed to just go our separate ways, and
Mm-hmm.
people I've never even heard of will come at me in my mentions, and
Oh, come on, dude.
yeah, like I remember one time somebody received a hurtful remark. I can't remember the exact context of it, but I was like, just
Mhm.
I said, hey, I'm really sorry you went through that, and if you want to talk about it, I've you know I check a lot of boxes. Like I'm native Canadian, I've got darker skin,
Mhm.
I'm older, I'm bisexual. And so like I check a lot of boxes, so I was like, if you want to talk, hit me up. And yeah, like two or three people jumped in right away. They're like, oh well, don't trust this guy, he said this
Oh
stuff 2 years ago. And I'm like,
god.
bro, like, let's just get over it, please. You're so weird. And
Mm.
yeah, but yeah, it was just yeah, I don't want to keep you here for too long, and
Mhm.
I do have to get back to work here pretty
I
soon.
see, I
But
see.
I really appreciate you making the time to be on the podcast today, and
Of course.
I hope that the people listening learned a lot about not just you and me, but like about how to conduct themselves in the community. And I think
Mhm.
that kind of conversation is really important to have, especially with all that's going on in the community. We
Mhm.
had that unfortunate, casters using words that we shouldn't be using.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and of course, with all you've been going through, um, I think you're a really strong, resilient individual. And I think that, like in terms of, um, from a fellow person of color, I think you're a very inspirational figure to have in the
Thank you. I
DBD
really do
community. So,
appreciate it.
yeah.
I was gonna say thank you to you as well because I do believe that having medias and whatnot is a fantastic way, like the podcast specifically,
Hmm.
of reaching out to people and making it so that voices are amplified and that people that are in this diverse community
Hmm.
understand from POC to POC and even those that are willing to learn as well.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I pride myself in like, um, the guests that I bring on, I'm very deliberate in like, I
Mm-hmm.
really want to reach, all avenues of the community. So I'm not just interviewing like just white people essentially. I want to get
Yeah.
all cultures involved, and you know,
Yeah.
I liked, and as a part of joining my stream team recently, I definitely want to
Mhm.
talk about my culture a lot more because I realized
Mhm.
that I bury that quite a bit because I know once I talk about it, people are going to say, "Well, oh, you're talking too much about it. We're not here for that. We're here for
Yeah.
Dead by Daylight." And it's like, well,
Yeah, I
that's me
know.
as a person, though. Like,
Yeah, I'm the person that's producing the content. Hey.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's through my stream team stuff with all Native American, Native Canadians, and seeing what you're going through and what other people are going through in the community. I've been really felt empowered and really wanted to get you on to talk about these things. So I appreciate it.
Of course.
At the end of each show, I do like to give everybody a chance to plug anything you're working on with your content. Where can people find you and your work?
Everywhere that's available, just about. I've claimed the handle Lillipie101. That is LILLIPIE 101. And I stream just about every single day except for Monday,
Hmm.
usually 9 a.m. CT to about 4 p.m. CT. And then I've regularly got stuff going up on TikTok, YouTube videos weekly, and you will find me doing something weird on Twitter or just like
Yeah.
kind of posting about my life on Twitter or on Instagram with like a lot of pictures and reels and whatnot,
Oh,
those
cool.
kinds of things. So,
Cool. Great. Well, thanks very much for being on the show.
mhm.
Appreciate you, and I wish you all the best in the future.
You as well. Thank you so much. I
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Take care.